Hey y'all, I'm CassB and welcome back to my channel. So if you've been following along with my channel for at least the last couple of months, you would know that I just moved into my new studio space, which is where we're recording from now today. So in the last video, I said that I really was excited to show you all the studio tour, and that was true. But of course, over Black Friday, there were some really great deals on some furniture, and so I've made some new additions to the studio. So actually, we're gonna put a pin on that until that arrives. So instead, what we're going to do today is a little bit of a brief tutorial on how to install a collar and a collar stand into a base body for a button down, just like this. So you can see that I've already got the base body done, which means the two center front panels that overlap in the front, and eventually they will be buttons all the way down. There will be a buttonhole that will go actually in the collar stand as well. So I'll show you how to install a collar and collar stand. I'll show you all the pieces and how to put it together today. So let's get started. So we're gonna start by looking at the pattern pieces themselves so that you guys understand the shape of them and what they should look like. Some pattern pieces actually instruct for you to have a piece kind of like this and cut it on the fold so that both sides are perfectly symmetrical. That's fine. Also, sometimes pattern pieces will just tell you that they are laid out like this and to cut two of them, and this is why. So you're gonna end up with generally two panels of each, 1, 2, and then one of them is going to be interface of each one. So we have our collar stand, which is this piece. This is the collar. And then I have fusible, like light mid-weight Pellon interfacing. I actually got this from Joann's. I just got a whole bolt of it, so shout out to you guys. So I've gone ahead and interfaced these. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start with putting our pieces together, right sides together. And then we're going to put a pin. We're gonna go around all this entire outer edge. We're gonna clip our corners. We're gonna press our seams open. And then we're going to attach our collar stand to it. So let's get to that. So at this point, we've gotten our right sides together and we had sewn around the outer edges. The pattern that I had made instructed you to use 1/4 inch seam allowance, and so that was the stitch width that we used. And then I like to press my seams open first and then turn it right side out because it makes it easier for everything to be more flush and makes the process of ironing even easier. And then lastly, don't forget to clip your corners. I'm going to use my corner turner, which I got from Wall Walk Sewing, to go ahead and turn this right side out. So let's do that now. Okay, so now we've got it turned. Our corners look really nice and crisp. Now we're gonna go ahead and press that down, and then I like to just stitch this outer seam closed so that both of my layers stay together, which makes it easier to attach to the collar stand, which comes next. Now that our collar is nice and pressed, you can see that everything lays really flush, and then I've got our seam down here stitched together so that both of the layers stay in place, and we're gonna be adding this. So the collar stand, it's honestly a lot easier than you're probably expecting. You're essentially gonna sandwich all of the seam allowance together. I know that this is the edge that's going to be attached to the collar because my pattern piece indicates that, so I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna place this about right there. You want just a little bit of overlap on the outer edge, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. And that's so it extends just beyond the collar, and you can technically still stitch it right sides together, so. All right, so now that I've got that pinned on, you see we have this really nice curve. I'm gonna flip it over, and we're gonna sandwich the other piece exactly like the other. Pinning it singly at a time, just one at a time, is helpful for me. You do not have to do it that way. It's just what I found to be easiest. So now I'm gonna come back in, got my pins, and see how we're matching up around this outer edge. This is one of the only sections that you're actually gonna stitch down at 1/2 inch so that it perfectly clears the collar stand. Okay, so at this point you can see that we're all pinned together. We're gonna start on this outer edge. We're gonna go around this curve. We're gonna stitch all the way around to the other side. Don't forget to clip your curved edges. That'll just make it a lot easier when you're gonna turn it right sides out. And then when you go to press it, it'll make everything really nice and flush. So I'm just gonna stitch this once again at 1/2 inch. and we'll go to the next step. Okay, so essentially it looked like this, and now that we've pressed it nicely, we're getting finally the shape that's actually starting to look more like a collar. So we've got our nice rounded edge. That'll be our finish point on both sides. That's also where our little buttonhole is gonna go. And then what I've done is the side that you will see whenever it's hanging on the hanger, because this is the side that's interfaced on the collar piece, that's what I stitched to the same segment, and we're gonna fold and press under about 1/4 of an inch, because that's the seam allowance that I'm going to stitch this line to the neckline of the bodice. So let me grab that and we'll pin it down together and then sew it. Okay, so here's our pieces, and again to reiterate, this back channel here is what gets stitched at 1/4 of an inch all the way around here. Okay, so finally we're going to take this to our sewing machine. We are only going to be catching this layer and the bodice of the shirt. Now note, this fabric is slightly stretchy, and so you can see it doesn't look like this is going to match up with this line, but you just pull it just slightly and you find that it will. If your seams really don't match up by a lot, then you've done something wrong, so go check your seam allowances and how you put all your pattern pieces together to kind of troubleshoot that out. And then ultimately, once that's stitched, we're going to be sandwiching all of the seam allowance on the inside. So I'm going to stitch this down and we'll get to the next step. Okay, so now that that's stitched down, you see that that all matched up really very nice. All I did was kind of press the seam upward so that everything will fold into the collar stand. So you can see on the outside, nice and clean and pressed. So on this side, the next point is to just go ahead and start from each side, fold under all of that seam allowance, and it really just sandwiches it so perfectly, right on top, hiding all of that seam. All right, so now that we've gotten that all stitched down, just to show you again, we stitch essentially right on top of the seam that actually joined the collar stand to this piece here. And so it's really nice and clean all the way around. Everything matches up really nicely. You can see our stitch just barely on the outer side of the fabric, and then ultimately it will join together like a nice little collar. Yeah. Okay everyone, that is the end of our collar and collar stand tutorial for today. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it for you, as always. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts, so please leave those and your suggestions in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next week.